On your right and on your left are freedom fighters. They're the ones who care about us and our rights as motorcyclists. And rather than go outside and get some fresh air or have a drink, they're here to learn for all of us. So how about an applause for the people that stayed to learn? Yay. In 1999, two college professors, one from University of Iowa and the other one from Washington State, got together and they did a study. They took 179 test participants and they divided them into two groups. One group was given 2 numbers to memorize, and the other group was given 7 numbers to memorize. And then they were told they would have to go down the hallway and write down the numbers they were told to memorize. And while they were waiting for the results, they would be put in a room where there was fruit and there was cake, but they could only have one. Now, these people thought that they were being tested on their memory, but they weren't. What they were testing was cognitive fatigue. And what they found was the people that had to memorize 2 digits, 2 numbers, half of them had cake and half of them had fruit. The people that had 7 digits to memorize, 98% of them had chocolate cake. Because we all know that fruit is better for us. There's vitamins in it. It's healthier. We also know chocolate cake tastes great, but it has a calorie price, 300 calories. Turns out, when people are tired, because the brain is like a muscle, it gets tired, you have cognitive fatigue, and you don't make the right choices. So you go for that sugary, sweet meal, which is why supermarkets, they put those impulse items right by the register. So usually the vegetables are the first thing you see when you come in, the meat's in the back, and after you go around and you have to decide what spaghetti sauce to take over 7,000 different spaghetti sauces, you get cognitive fatigue. They don't set up an aisle where it's all the essential stuff everybody needs, everybody gets. No, they make you walk through the whole store. So you get tired, and at the end of the aisles, they have the impulse items, like that beer that's on special. Or by the register, they got the sweets. Now, they know it doesn't work all the time, but people have cognitive fatigue, and they don't make the right decisions. I was asked to speak about things you should ask your lawyer. First thing is, you should know is you should get a lawyer. If you're involved in any sort of incident where you're thinking maybe I can handle this on my own or get a lawyer, get a lawyer. Because there's specific rules that protect individuals once they have an attorney. An insurance company can't contact you directly if you're represented by counsel. The police have to stop questioning you about a crime if you're represented by counsel. They have to go through your attorney. But when somebody's looking for an attorney, they probably have cognitive fatigue. Because after an accident, you're not feeling well. You've been in the hospital. You're not sleeping right, or you're sleeping too much because you're on pain medicine. Your family that's with you, they're tired because they're worried. They're wondering what's going to happen. How's he going to work? How are we going to pay our bills? What's going on? Is he going to keep his leg? Whatever it's going to be. They're tired. If it's an arrest, we're up all night finding when he's going to get out, when it's going to be arraignment. We got to get the money together to pay his bail, to get a look. You're tired. So you don't always make the right decisions. Because you're making these decisions with cognitive fatigue. So, that being said, how do you pick the right attorney, and what questions should you ask? Well, because you're in this room, I'm assuming, like me, you're a rider. And that typically comes with unique concerns. So I'm going to discuss, first of all, the things that your attorney can say and can't say to you. Then I'm going to tell you about some common problems. And then I'm going to tell you about solutions to common problems that I have found from trying cases and representing the community for over 35 years. Okay, so, first of all, anytime you're involved in the judicial system, whether it's a criminal case or a civil case, it's a fight for justice. It's a fight. It's not a Sunday afternoon in the park. It's a fight. Because by design, our justice system is an adversarial system. You might think that, oh, well, if I didn't do anything wrong, I'm going to win. That's bullshit. You might think, oh, if the accident's not your fault, somebody else's fault, you're going to get fair compensation. That's bullshit. It's a fight, and you've got to win the fight. And so, who do you want on your side for the fight? Well, first of all, you want somebody with experience. You want somebody preferably respected in the community. Somebody that has time and somebody that has interest. So, experience. How do you know if somebody has experience? Well, you might be referred to somebody from a friend of yours. And they might say, oh, this guy did a great job for me. That doesn't mean they're experienced. Because, you know, it's like in any field you want to talk about. Let's say it's a carpenter. That carpenter might screw up everything they touch, but one door came out good. That doesn't mean that carpenter's a good carpenter. It just means that one job worked out for him. A teacher might be the worst teacher in the world, but has one smart student, goes on to do all sorts of things. Doesn't mean it's a good teacher. Auto mechanic. He might have figured out that this car needed a new alternator or whatever. Doesn't mean he's a good mechanic. It means he was able to fix that one car. So how do you know if your attorney's experienced? Well, for example, motorcycle accidents. I could say I've tried more motorcycle accident cases than any other attorney in the Northeast. Probably, maybe in the United States, but definitely in the Northeast. I've tried every type of motorcycle case you can imagine. I've tried motorcycle versus car, motorcycle versus bus, motorcycle versus truck, motorcycle versus motorcycle, failure to retract kickstand, exploding gas tank, roadway defects, motorcycle versus bump, motorcycle versus lip, motorcycle with improper signs. And I've brought these cases up to the highest court in New York State. And my cases actually changed the law in New York State, where you could get summary judgment granted on a left turn case. Anybody that brings that case in New York State, they have to cite my case, because I established that law. And I can show that. So if anybody has more experience handling a motorcycle case, I'll kiss their ass in Macy's window. I can say that. Not many lawyers can. If you're a lawyer, I also ride. I broke my wrist, my ankle, and 7 bones in my back in a motorcycle accident, 1993, and I'm still riding. I got a Corner Kids Foundation where I give money to families who lost someone as a result of a motorcycle accident, regardless of fault, regardless if they're using me as their attorney or not. That's a charity I started. So I care about it. So I can say I'm experienced. So the first thing you could ask your attorney is, are you experienced? Tell me about it. And if they say, I'm the best, I know, that's not their experience. Get particulars. A reputation. How do you know if your attorney has a reputation? Well, what do they do in the community? I was elected president of the New York State Academy of Trial Lawyers, the largest trial bar in the state, in the country, largest state trial bar in the country. I was elected president by my peers. I sit on the committee that selects judges for our highest court. I've lectured not to motorcycle groups, but to attorney groups, the American Association of Justice, New York State Trial Lawyers Academy. They sell classes online of me teaching how to handle a motorcycle accident case. So I can say I've got experience. If your attorney can't tell you about their experience and what they do, they're probably not the right one. Now, second thing, are they interested? Because, so in New York, we got these billboards all over New York. I'm sure you guys have seen them, Morgan & Morgan. And they advertise as the largest law firm in the country. Well, there are some guys out of Florida, and when they came to New York, I know this, because they were in my building. They had one guy who was just out of law school sharing space above me, handling their lawsuits. That's my phone.
Could be a hot case, you better get it. Don't cripple up on a
Okay,
road.
but they had a whole floor in Brooklyn doing their advertising. Imagine that, a law firm where they have a whole full floor doing their advertising and one guy handling the cases. And now they have a reputation in New York of constant turnover, that they can't keep attorneys, but they're crossing these cases out of Orlando, where they're trying to settle cases, but not really familiar with the courts in New York. So yeah, they're really good at marketing. Really good. They're better than me. Absolutely better at marketing than I am. I'll say it again, they're better at marketing. But McDonald's is really good at marketing, but is that the best restaurant? Are their chefs famous? When they give out awards for chefs, is it a McDonald's chef that does it? Or is it like some guy who's, small restaurant who really cares about what they're doing? So you might want to ask, who's handling my case? Are you going to be available, Mr. Morgan, to take my phone calls? Who's the person? How long have they worked for you? Can I talk to you if my case goes to trial? Who's going to try the case? Will you try it? They have to have availability, okay? So, experience, a reputation, availability. They should have a team, because you can't do it all yourself. I'm here, right? Somebody said, oh, that could be a case. I got people in my office, so I can be here. Things don't shut down. The cases are moving. I hold people responsible. We have a computer tracking system. I've got a team. Because if it's one guy, what if they're sick? It's sometimes you have a friend do some work for you around the house. If they don't show up, the work's not getting done. But if you hire a big company, it might cost you a little more, but they got people they can put on it. Now, with a lawyer, you pay a third either way. Most states have a third. Florida, they pay 40%. But you might as well get the best lawyer you can, because you're going to take a third anyway, so they should have a team. Now, every motorcycle case is not the same. Every motorcyclist is not the same. Your lawyer needs to know that. Because I hear, and I've heard this for over 30 years, nobody likes motorcycles. Well, if you got a lawyer in the back of his mind thinking nobody likes motorcycles, nobody likes bikers, He's already figuring how he's going to lose your case and how it's not his fault. That's bullshit. You don't want a lawyer who's already thinking about how they're going to lose your case. You can't win if you plan to lose. You got to win. And so you can't go into it with that attitude, well, it's motorcycle because everybody hates him. You got to go in and figure it out, how you're going to win that case. And hopefully you got a lawyer that thinks about that all the time. All right, so, common problems. First one is the background. Does your client have a rap sheet? And a lawyer needs to know how you handle that. I have one guy in New York, John Jackaruso. When he was 18 years old, he shot 5 people in a nightclub. Goes to jail for 10 years. Comes out. He's out of jail 1 month. And he puts his girlfriend in the trunk of his car, drives over to a friend's house, and tells a friend, get a shovel and some lye, I gotta bury this bitch. Drives around with her in the trunk for an hour, then he lets her off at home. She tells her father goes to the police. 1 month, he was out, back in jail. Back in jail. Then he gets a job working for the mortgage business. He says back in those days, you could get a license to sell mortgages as long as it wasn't a crime of dishonesty. And he said, my crimes are all violent, so I was okay. So he gets that job, and then he quits that after a year, and he becomes a deck guy building skyscrapers, construction. And he's doing well, and he buys a motorcycle, and he's passing the motorcycle, he's passing a utility truck, going over a double yellow line, and the truck starts to turn, and he swerves to miss the truck, hits a tree, breaks his leg, and that's why he hires me. So I got this background. While the case is pending, he puts a gun to a guy's head and fires off a shot in the air. And he goes back in jail. He does another 3 years and comes out, the case is going to trial. The judge said, which is the law in New York, you could talk about all these things at trial. All these problems came in there. So I had to deal with that. And I did it the way I've always done. Start off in jury selection. You got to tell the people, listen, this guy's a bad guy. He's got a lot of problems with this case. Can you judge on this case? And you got to get the jurors to commit to that. You say, well, he's got all these different problems. And you got to get the jurors to commit to that before they, so you tell them before, and you tell them how horrible a guy is. He's an animal. He's a monster. He's the worst person in the world. But can you judge him on the facts of this case? Then when they see him, and he's cleaned up, they say, he's not as bad as Proner was telling him. He doesn't seem so bad. He made some mistakes in his youth. It's always in their youth. Always in their youth. And this guy, case goes to trial on liability. I win liability, and now it's a damage trial. Same guy. He crashes into a guardrail at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's outside his car, and a woman, cop, pulls over to see what's going on, and he's thinking, now I'm going to lose my case because we're going to go ahead to the damages trial. I got him an offer. He says, that's not enough. That's not enough. I need more money. And I said, what do you think you can do with this money? You're going to spend it at the prison commissary. You're not going to. He says, you're going to be buying ramen with it. He's like, no, I'm going to set up a business. I said, you're going back to jail. That's all you do. You like it there. No. So while it's going on, he ends up running from the woman. The woman chases him. He starts fighting with her. she maces him. He takes the mace from her, he hits her with it. Another cop shows up in a pedestrian, and they beat him up. And he calls me up. He says, "I'm in jail again. I want to know about police brutality." I'm like, "This is not a case, John." Let's go. Anyway, you need experience in dealing with the background that some of our people have. The next thing is social media. A lot of people in our community like to post on social media. And a guy could be on painkillers in terrible pain, but there he is, smiling with his bike. He can't work because he's got a limp and everything else, but there he is, smiling with his bike. And there he might be in like the worst shape, but he goes out to his clubhouse with his brothers, and he takes a photo smiling. And now that little snapshot, it looks like this guy is having the time of his life. So you gotta warn them to stay off social media, but nobody listens. So your attorney has to know how to deal with that as well. And if they're not talking about the pitfalls, you gotta be aware of it. That's wrong. Next thing is known associates. Typically in a trial, you want to have people outside the family and outside the experts come in and testify about how this accident has changed the life of the individual. And when you say, I need like 6 people that could come in and talk about how your life has changed, typically those 6 people are all in their club. Now, an attorney that's not experienced is afraid of that and thinks they can't go ahead. But you can, because what we know is most of these guys in your club have regular jobs. They do some sort of work. Most of them are employed. And so you bring in those people that are employed in the club, and then they come in and they say, "What do you do?" "Oh, I fix commercial vehicles for the county. I'm the one that when the snow plows have to go out, I'm the one that fixes those plows." And the next one, "What do you do?" "Oh, I'm a carpenter. I work for Siemens and Gleason Carpentry. And I'm a master carpenter. I've done that for 40 years. And once you talk about these people, what they do outside the club, they're more likely to be believed about the effects of the individual's life, and you get fair compensation and justice. The one thing that you can't fix is stupid.
Not legally, anyway.
But most of the people in our community are a lot sharper than people expect them to be. And if you got an attorney that thinks you're stupid just because you ride, that's not the right person either. So I'm grateful for the life that I share with you in riding. I'm grateful for the people that have trusted me with their lives and their claims and their cases. And I wish all of you good health, and hopefully you don't need a lawyer.
My question is, I'm an old hillbilly guy, and I always heard an old phrase, and you solved the problem. The old phrase was, "You're nuttier than a fruitcake." So when you brought that up about a fruit or the cake, you know what I'm saying, that made sense of why they always say, "Yeah, you're dumb or stupider than a fruitcake." So is that where that idea come up with, or am I just thinking over my head?
Yeah,
when
Russell,
you was talking
you're-
about the
you're
people
kinda wet, Russell.
memorize the numbers, and then they had to go in, do you get a piece of cake or do you get a piece of fruit?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
That's
glad.
what I learned.
I'm glad you learned a lot there.
Quit smoking crack, Russell.
I think that has nothing to do with the study, the fruitcake. It's
Well, I
different.
just kind of put that in my mind.
Okay.
When I tell you about you lawyers,
I'll tell you something else. If I tell you, don't think of a purple elephant, the one image you have in your head is a purple elephant.
It's true.
Well, yeah,
So-
you gotta think that, yeah.
So it's the same thing when you're a lawyer. You don't try the other side's case. You gotta try your case and don't get sidetracked. And sometimes the image that we're left with is not really what the case is about. Jim?
I don't need my, oh, you want me to? This is not to blow smoke up your ass whatsoever, but as a representative from Long Island Debate for about 20 years, I just want to use you as an example. I'd like to add what you said. When you look for an attorney, you want an attorney that's not going to take the first offer that's given. You want an attorney that's going to go for, what do you call that word?
Justice.
No, when you go fight, here's the phrase, I'm
Go
sorry.
to trial if necessary.
Every
Yeah,
last
a litigator, excuse me.
Every last fucking.
You want a
cent you can
litigator,
get.
and I know Mitch 20 years. There's another attorney that competes with Mitch that does an awful lot of advertising, and I've taken turns. I suggest Mitch, I suggest this guy, back and forth for 12 years. 8 years ago, I decided the majority of my recommendations are to Mitch because it was established that Mitch will go and litigate. He'll tell them to kiss his ass when it comes to, oh, here's an easy settlement, where one attorney is lazy and might say, yeah, let's take the quick settlement, you'll take less money. So as an example, what Mitch does, when you look for an attorney, look for somebody who's gonna go the full, all 9 yards, and is gonna turn around and fight for you. That's it, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Watch that chair.
Yeah. Gonna have to sue somebody. Well, the AIM attorneys are some of the best attorneys in the country. Mitch Proner and Jerry T out of Florida. Jared Newman's going to come up or talk about. I don't know if you want to come up or sit there, but he's going to talk about the fight he had to get tattooing legalized in South Carolina. You got Dondi in the back there that's always fighting the insurance laws out there in Michigan. And Vinci, if he's here somewhere, we got some of the best attorneys out there, the AIM attorneys, so utilize them, they kick ass. Here's Jared Newman then.
Thanks. Good afternoon.